Good morning. Thank you so much for joining me here for our Amtrak Vacations webinar on Roundtrip Rail Vacations, learning how you can start any rail vacation from your hometown with Amtrak Vacations. I can see we've got several people who are still logging on, so I'm just going to give it one quick minute, and then we'll get started on today's live presentation. All right, so thank you again for joining me. My name is Colleen McCarthy, and I have been very lucky to work here with Amtrak Vacations for almost 8 years now. So I've had the wonderful good fortune to have traveled on many of the different trains and to many of the different destinations that we're going to feature in today's presentation. So I always want to encourage you folks, before we get started, to ask any questions that you might have at all about the trips, about train travel, anything that I didn't cover fully or anything that I missed covering. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. You can see in our screenshot here, we've got the little box on the side. You should be able to see it. Go ahead and type those questions away all throughout the presentation, and I'll address as many as we have time for at the end of the presentation. And don't worry, because if I don't have a chance to get to your particular question, we'll make sure that we have somebody from the team reach out to you with that answer. So please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. And as well, please feel free to download. We've got some great free handouts on the presentation today, like information about onboard accommodations and things like that. You can download those at any time throughout the presentation. So again, please ask questions. It's one of my favorite parts of the experience you're getting to interact with you folks. So just to touch on quickly, obviously today's presentation is about Amtrak Vacations. So we take you all across the USA and on up into Canada. With Amtrak. We do have a couple of sister brands here as well. So Yankee Holidays does some city packages, and our Rail Bookers brand does the same kind of thing, but in Europe and beyond. Now, I always like to start out these Amtrak Vacations presentations with a picture of the Amtrak Vacations system map. I think this is so key because it really does do a great job of illustrating everywhere that Amtrak goes. And especially today, talking about traveling from your hometown, you can see how many rail routes Amtrak has across the USA and connecting on up into Canada. So wherever you might live, whether it's the East Coast, the West Coast, or anywhere in the middle, pretty much we can get you on board a train to start out your trip. Now you will see quite a few trips here as we go through, starting from major cities like Chicago and Washington. But fear not, if you do not live in a major city, we can connect you very easily from your hometown. And additionally, all of these trips can be customized. So if you see a trip that starts in Chicago, but you live on the East Coast and you want to start out from Boston or New York or anywhere in between, just let us know and we can certainly make that happen for you. So as you can see on the Amtrak system map here, Amtrak does go to 46 out of the 48 continuous United States. And in addition, they have moved over 31 million people last year alone. So quite a lot of people riding the rails here with Amtrak. And I like to talk a little bit at the start of the presentation as well about what makes Amtrak Vacations different from your, typical or normal holiday. For one thing, it is a bucket list experience. So I know that a lot of folks have dreamed of train travel. You have that romantic image of eating in the dining car, sleeping in your own little private cabin, and waking up somewhere fabulous. And with Amtrak Vacations, the journey is really part of your trip. It's not just a way to get from point A to point B. It's really a fantastic experience in itself riding on board the train. With Amtrak, you also have a lot of freedom and flexibility. So the train departs every hour in some cases. In other cases, of course, it departs, daily. So you can really travel anywhere you want to go and pretty much whenever you'd like to go as well. It's also hassle-free travel. So I always like to remind people you can bring normal size bottles of shampoo on board Amtrak. You have a very generous luggage allowance. You do not have to be at the station 3 hours early. It's really very convenient and comfortable way to travel. You also have room to roam on board the train, so you're not stuck in your seat during the trip. You can get up and head down to the dining car, the observation car, or really just take a stroll. We are the official tour operator of Amtrak. So here at Amtrak Vacations, that does give us some great perks, like bringing you folks some excellent discounts, as well as being able to book 24 months in advance. So you can actually book a trip to travel tomorrow or all the way to 2 years from now with Amtrak Vacations. And Amtrak's really fantastic because it provides city to city service. So when you take the train, you come right into the heart of the city, right into downtown Chicago, downtown New York City, midtown Manhattan. They're right next to Madison Square Garden. If anybody's ever flown to Chicago or New York, you've probably experienced that 45-minute to an hour cab ride after you've landed to actually get into the city. That is not the case with Amtrak Vacations. So the train does bring you right to your centrally located area, in each city, right downtown where the sightseeing and dining and restaurants and things like that are. And Amtrak Vacations offers something for everyone, whether you're just taking a quick weekend getaway or you want to go all the way across the country and back on a round trip vacation. Amtrak Vacations can offer that for you. Now, I do like, kind of at this stage in the game, to cover that elephant in the room, if you will. As we all know, these are maybe not such normal times we're living in here. I can tell because I'm speaking to you live from my laundry room. I have a pile of bath towels I have to fold when we're done here. Um, so I know that some people, may have a little bit of a hesitation on planning a vacation right now, especially when we don't know exactly when we're going to get the all clear to travel again. But the great thing about Amtrak Vacations is that you have maximum flexibility. So for new or existing reservations, you can change your travel dates, or if you need to, you can cancel the trip right up until 5 days prior to your departure, and there will be no change fees and no cancellation penalties. So again, you guys can, book with confidence. Basically, you can change your trip if you need to right up until 5 days before you leave. And our teams are doing a fantastic job. If you do have an existing reservation or a new reservation and you need to make those changes, we'd be more than happy to help you. And like I say, we do book up to 24 months in advance. So even if you want to move your trip, from this spring out to next spring, that's no problem. Just give us a call and we can certainly help you with that. And all of our rail vacations with Amtrak Vacations are customizable. So again, kind of the theme here today is Roundtrip Rail Vacations. And I do want to emphasize that you can start from your hometown. So if anybody's familiar with Boston, you can see the slide on the left there, South Station. But of course, you don't have to start right in Boston. We've got the Route 128 station in Massachusetts, the stations in Worcester, all kinds of stations throughout the USA and even up into Canada. Whatever's closest to you, we can get you on the train there and connect you to a major rail line if you're not already on one. So certainly any of these trips that you see here starting from Chicago, if you live elsewhere in Illinois, we can easily pop you on the train over to Chicago. You change trains there and you start your vacation. In a lot of other cases, you might actually be on one of the major rail lines and not even know it. So you can start, in Worcester, for example, you can hop on the Lakeshore Limited right there in Worcester and head all the way over to Chicago. You don't even need to head to Boston first. So we can absolutely get you started from your hometown station. We can also customize all of the packages here to suit your individual interests and needs. So, for example, we've got a fantastic Rails to the Grand Canyon trip, which we're going to look at a little bit later in the presentation. If you like that trip, but you want to spend more time at the Grand Canyon, that's no problem. We can add extra nights in the middle of the trip. We can also upgrade your hotels, like to the famous El Tovar Lodge right there inside the national park. And then if you wanted to head back to LA at the end and stay there for a few nights, maybe get a chance to see the Griffith Observatory, the Hollywood sign, and the Walk of Fame, we can certainly do that as well. We would add a Los Angeles getaway on the end of that Rails to the Grand Canyon package. So whatever you're interested in, we can customize your hotels, your sightseeing, we can add extra nights, we can add extra destinations. So whatever you see here as we go throughout the presentation, just keep that in mind because we can customize it to whatever you are looking for your perfect vacation. And I do want to touch in this current environment on what Amtrak is doing to maintain, a safe and secure trip for everyone. So of course they have enhanced their cleaning protocols. They're following very closely the CDC guidelines around cleaning and social distancing. The equipment is cleaned and sanitized daily. In many cases, it's cleaned multiple times per day, based on the CDC guidelines again. They are going cashless, so as an extra measure to ensure the health and safety of our customers and employees, they will temporarily be accepting cashless payments only in the stations and on board the trains. They also have social distancing posters with guidelines as well as floor stickers in some of the busy areas, especially in the stations, to help you see where you should stand to be 6 feet or more apart. And they have a committed team of 18,000 employees who are working together to make sure that you get to your destination safely. In addition, one of the great features of Amtrak is that they can pretty easily create onboard distance. So what they're doing is they're selling a limited number of seats on each carriage, so that they do have distance from each other in the coach seating. And again, if you were to upgrade on your trip and get one of the roomette or bedroom private sleeping accommodations, if you like, you can pretty much spend your entire trip there in your own private cabin to minimize interaction as well. So with that covered, let's jump into Amtrak's National Parks round trip from Chicago. So this, folks, is one of my very favorite packages here. This trip features the California Zephyr, which is absolutely one of Amtrak's most beautiful and most scenic train rides. I know that you're not supposed to have a favorite train route. Well, you're probably not supposed to have a favorite child, but the California Zephyr is right up there for me as one of my absolute favorite train trips. Just a beautiful ride there, especially that second half of the ride between Denver and Grand Junction, and then Grand Junction and Salt Lake City. So with this trip, you do go round trip from Chicago, but as I mentioned, we can certainly start you out from your hometown if that makes more sense for you. It is one overnight on the train from Chicago out to Denver, where you do 2 nights. And while you're in Denver, you do a tour of Rocky Mountain National Park. You then take Amtrak again to Grand Junction, Colorado, which is your jumping off point to do some amazing tours of Arches and Canyonlands National Park. You hop back on and head to Salt Lake City, where you then head up to West Yellowstone, Montana for your 2 days in Yellowstone National Park. Come on back down to Salt Lake City for the night, and then it's one more overnight on the train back to Chicago. So again, this is fantastic, folks. With all the trips we're going to look at today, they are round trip vacations, which means if you don't want to fly and deal with the airports, you don't have to at all. We can get you right from start to finish on board the train. And this national park strip is so fantastic because, as I mentioned, we do feature the California Zephyr train, which is considered one of the most scenic train rides in the entire world, particularly, as I mentioned, that second half. So out of Denver, you're climbing up into the Rocky Mountains, all the way as far as Grand Junction. And then Grand Junction to Salt Lake is beautiful as well. You're following the Colorado River, and you've got these tremendous red rock formations and just this beautiful scenery, throughout the journey. While you're in Denver, as I mentioned, you do have a full day tour of Rocky Mountain National Park. So that's really fantastic as well. The pickup and drop off for that is right downtown, so super close to your hotel accommodations, easily within walking distance of the train and your hotel. And you spend the full day out there in Rocky Mountain National Park. You get out and go to several different scenic lookouts. The guides are fantastic. They're all Colorado natives and folks that have lived there for, many years, and they're super familiar with the park and all the different wildlife and different things you might see there. And then you take the train out to Grand Junction, Colorado, which is a beautiful little town. And like I said, it's your jumping off point for your private tour of Arches and Canyonlands National Parks. And these guides are fantastic as well. They have basically an encyclopedia of knowledge in their brains about these national parks here. And as you can see, they're absolutely stunning, red rock formations, just breathtaking views and vistas for you to check out there on that day trip. And then, of course, you hop back on the train and head out to Salt Lake City, where you do an overnight stay before you head up to Yellowstone National Park. And then one more overnight stay in Salt Lake before you head back to Chicago. Of course, Yellowstone National Park is absolutely one of the highlights. It's one of the largest national parks here in the US. It's actually our first national park as well. And they've just got some tremendous geothermal features. You've probably all heard of Old Faithful Geyser. They've got all kinds of different amazing attractions there in Yellowstone National Park. And make sure that you keep an eye out for wildlife as well, because if you're lucky, you'll see bison. They have wolves, bald eagles, bears, foxes, all kinds of different wildlife there in Yellowstone National Park. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled during that tour as well. And again, folks, this one, America's National Park, is round trip from Chicago. It does feature that beautiful California Zephyr train. It's 8 nights hotel accommodations and 2 nights on board Amtrak. So you do have that opportunity to kind of have that, wonderful overnight experience on the train. The trip does come with coach seating on board Amtrak, but you can certainly upgrade that to your own private cabin. We'll look at what those cabins look like a little bit later in the presentation today. If you want something a little different, though, we have another great trip here, Niagara Falls Ultimate Getaway round trip from Chicago. This one's one of my favorite trips here because this is just a jam-packed trip. You have 3 nights in Niagara Falls, but you have so much incredible sightseeing included for you with this trip, and it's a super affordable package here for you as well. So with your 3 nights in Niagara Falls, you get the Niagara Adventure Pass, which gives you admission to 4 of the major attractions up there at the falls, including the boat ride pictured out to the base of the falls. So you put on your poncho and get sprayed by the falls on your boat ride. You can also journey behind the falls, and there's a whitewater walk along the base that's included as well. In addition, with this package, you do get admission to the Skylon Tower, which is a beautiful big observation deck to get a bird's eye view of the falls. And you have a dinner at a popular restaurant, including dinners included there for you as well at a popular local restaurant, which does overlook the falls again. So even though it's just a 3-night hotel trip, and 2 nights on board Amtrak, it is kind of jam packed with a lot of fun and different sightseeing for you up there in Niagara Falls. And certainly, if you folks, again, weren't coming from Chicago, you can get up to Niagara Falls from the East Coast by New York. So we can connect you, from anywhere, Connecticut, like that, up into New York City and then up to Niagara Falls, or anywhere along that Lakeshore Limited route that you saw from Chicago out to the falls as well. One of the other great features of this trip is that it does include private transfers to pick you up at the train station and drop you back off at your hotel in Niagara Falls. So kind of a nice seamless round trip journey there for you. You don't really have to worry about public transportation at all. Once you're up there at the falls, we do include a pass on the little WeGo shuttle buses that are up there. Or certainly most everything is within walking distance up there as well. So this is another great one. Get out there and see one of the most spectacular natural sights that we have there. And speaking of spectacular natural sights, wouldn't be an Amtrak Vacations presentation if I didn't at least mention the Grand Canyon, which is one of my favorite places that you can visit by train. So this Rails to the Grand Canyon package is one of our best-selling itineraries out to the Grand Canyon. It does depart from the West Coast, from Los Angeles, or certainly anywhere you might be located in Southern California. We can hook you up on your way out to the Grand Canyon. It does include 1 overnight train ride from Los Angeles to Williams, Arizona, which is the Great Way to the Grand Canyon. 2 hotel nights up in the Grand Canyon, and then 1 more overnight train ride back to California. And as I mentioned before, you can certainly customize any of these vacations if you wanted to spend more time at the Grand Canyon or elsewhere in Arizona. We can certainly set that up for you before taking you back to Los Angeles on our round trip rail vacation. So this package features Amtrak's Southwest Chief Train, which, as you can see there, goes through some really lovely red rock and kind of desert scenery there headed out to Arizona. You get some amazing canyon views and beautiful desert landscapes on board the Southwest Chief. This one is super convenient, folks, because you board the train in the evening. So if you're not looking for several days on board the train, but you do want to get a taste of that overnight experience, this one's kind of perfect for you. You board in the evening, and pretty much immediately once you board, you would have dinner. Now you can head down to the dining car, or as you can see later, you can have the meals delivered to you right in your room if you do take one of the private cabins. Relax a little bit after dinner in the observation car, maybe grab a glass of wine or something like that. And then you head to bed, and first thing the next morning when you wake up, you've arrived in Arizona. So it's really perfect to get that overnight experience, maybe for beginners if you're not super sure about doing a couple days on board the train. This one is a really great kind of starter trip out to the Grand Canyon. And of course, the Grand Canyon itself is absolutely breathtaking. The first time I visited, I was just blown away. You don't even think that it's real. It's just it stretches on as far as the eye can see, and it's just unbelievable. So of course we do include a tour of the Grand Canyon as part of this trip. So your guides will take you to several different vistas and overlooks where you can get out and take some really impressive photos like this one. And they'll also tell you all about how the Grand Canyon was formed and the significance to the native people. So, again, super knowledgeable folks there up at the Grand Canyon. It's a really tremendous experience. You can dine at one of the hotels in a restaurant that overlooks the canyon. If you're an early riser, I definitely recommend you try and get up before the sunrise. There at the canyon, it's spectacular. They have different ranger led hikes and things like that as well if you're interested in the outdoors that way. So this Reels to the Grand Canyon trip again, it's a round trip Amtrak train from Los Angeles. And actually, once you arrive in Arizona, you take another train from Williams, Arizona, up to the canyon itself. So that train is called the Grand Canyon Railway Train. It's really neat, folks. It's a steam engine train. Old-fashioned steam engine train. They have a really fun Wild West cowboy show right before the train leaves, and then the cowboys come on board the train and play the ukulele and things like that. So you have round-trip accommodations on that Grand Canyon Railway train, actually right up into the national park itself. As I mentioned, of course, you have the tour of the Grand Canyon and 2 nights hotel accommodations. Now, one of the things I really should point out with this is that you are staying right inside the national park. So when you folks take this trip, you're actually staying at one of the historic lodges right inside Grand Canyon National Park, which is fantastic. It makes it so easy. Like I said, if you did want to get up and take advantage of that sunset, you're right inside the national park. So you've got, just a couple minute walk to the canyon rim from whichever hotel you might stay in. And certainly, again, we can upgrade those hotels for you. So if you did want to stay at the hotel with a view of the canyon, we can certainly look into that as well. Another really fantastic trip that we have here on the East Coast is Charleston and Savannah, a round trip from Washington, D.C. So, Charleston and Savannah are two absolutely gorgeous southern cities here in South Carolina and Georgia. We have you spend 3 nights in Charleston and 2 nights in Savannah. But again, you can certainly customize this if you wanted to add more nights in either city. In Savannah, where we have you stay for 3 nights, we have a couple different tours offered for you. We include a sightseeing tour of Charleston, um, where you do see the city itself. And then we also have a tour out to the beautiful Magnolia Plantation as part of this trip as well. It does include a dinner in Charleston as well. And when you take the train down to Savannah, it's a very easy ride, just a couple hours on down to Savannah for you. There you spend 2 nights, but again, certainly you could extend it if you like. And we have a sightseeing tour of the city as well as a cruise to get you out on the water there in Savannah as well. So this is a really fantastic trip, folks. If you've not been to Charleston and Savannah, I highly recommend them. They're absolutely beautiful cities. The cuisine is amazing. Southern comfort food. You can get some absolutely fantastic meals in both places. They're beautiful and quaint and charming, and they've got so much history and culture as well. And the climate is really nice. Actually, this is one of my favorite places to go. We've done it a couple of years running, right at the very beginning of December. Both places do a tremendous job decorating for Christmas and things like that. So if you are looking for somewhere to go a little bit later on this year, I can highly recommend them right around that time. Beautiful decorations, all the mansions and things, the historic houses and things that you can tour there, decorate for Christmas, and have different attractions and things like that. Certainly, the Magnolia, where you visit with Charleston, will be completely decked out in beautiful, greenery and things like that for the Christmas season. So, if you were looking for somewhere to go a little bit later on this year, that's definitely a great choice for you. And we do have it round trip from Washington, D.C., but certainly you can go pretty much from anywhere on the East Coast. You can go up there from Florida. You can go down from New York or New Jersey or, anywhere like that. Or even head over from Chicago or anywhere kind of in the western part of the states. One of the other best-selling round trip vacations that we have here with Amtrak Vacations is the Northern Rail Experience. Now, the Northern Rail Experience is so fantastic because it is round trip from Chicago. So you start out and you end in the same place, of course. But it actually features three different train routes and three of Amtrak's most amazing scenic journeys. So you're not going out and back on the same train where you see the same scenery. You're going to see different scenery every time you get on board the train. So it's really fantastic. This one is designed for you rail buffs out there who really want to spend a lot of time on board the train and just see what it's like. It is 2 overnights on the train from Chicago out to Seattle. That's on Amtrak's Empire Builder route. 1 night in Seattle. 1 night from Seattle down to San Francisco on the Coast Starlight. 2 nights in San Francisco, get off and stretch your legs for just a little bit. And then 2 more overnights on the train from San Francisco back out to Chicago. And that's on my favorite California Zephyr train there. Now, the Empire Builder is absolutely an amazing route. Like I said, it goes from Chicago out to Seattle. It is 2 overnights to do the full route in one go. Certainly, we could have you stop along the way if you wanted to break up the journey. The train actually goes right through Glacier National Park in Montana, so really beautiful, stunning mountain scenery there. Before it heads on through the Cascades on its way into Seattle. And we do have you spend 1 night in Seattle. And while you're there, we have a sightseeing tour of the city. And again, as I mentioned, this trip is customizable. So let's say you wanted to skip Seattle and see Portland, Oregon instead. We can very easily do that because the Empire Builder route actually goes to Seattle and to Portland. So we could always swap it out for you. Seattle's a fantastic place, though. We have included a sightseeing tour. And as you can see in the picture there, the Space Needle, you can see absolutely tremendous views from the Space Needle as well. Before you take Amtrak's Coast Starlight train down to San Francisco. Now, the Coast Starlight is an absolutely amazing ride. As the name suggests, it does hug the coast for a lot of the journey. Actually goes through some really beautiful kind of mountainous area and the giant redwoods and things like that on your way in the Pacific Northwest part of the journey from Seattle down to San Francisco. And then we have you spend 2 nights in San Francisco because it is one of the most fun places to visit in the US. Lots of different dining options for you, lots of amazing culture and fun people and things in San Francisco. We have some great attractions for you included as well. We actually give you a chance to stretch your legs and go out to the Muir Woods and see the giant redwoods firsthand, right up close. We also have a bay cruise included because I feel like when you visit San Francisco, if you're going to go all the way to the Pacific Ocean, you should get out on the water for a little bit. So we do have a cruise that's included as well out on the water where you have tremendous views of the Golden Gate Bridge and the city itself. And then you hop on the amazing California Zephyr train and head back to Chicago. So again, tremendous scenery on the California Zephyr train. As you folks are leaving San Francisco, you go through the Sierra Nevada mountains in California, so big tall pine trees and beautiful kind of forested scenery. And then you come down into Utah, so you get that amazing red rock formations and things there, canyon views. You follow that Colorado River all the way, through Colorado, up into the Rocky Mountains and down into Denver, and then continue back on to Chicago. So that's one of the best things about this Northern Rail Experience trip is that you do see lots of different types of scenery throughout the journey. really different parts of the US as well, which is kind of neat. You kind of get a great view of how different our country can be just from place to place. So this one is one of our best-selling tours for sure. This is definitely a trip where I would recommend looking into those private cabins that we'll talk about in just a few minutes, because where you are going to spend 5 nights on board the train, I definitely think it's worth it for you folks to look into the roomettes and bedroom accommodations. So we'll touch on those in just a moment. Last trip that I want to kind of highlight here for you, just to kind of show again, you don't have to go all the way across the country. You can do just a little weekend getaway. So the Glenwood Springs getaway round trip from Denver. Glenwood Springs is a fantastic town there in Colorado if you're not familiar. You do 2 nights hotel accommodations and you have admission to the Glenwood Caverns tram and cave tour. So really fun, kind of outdoorsy place to visit. And you have round trip Amtrak included from Denver out to Glenwood Springs. So certainly we can do any kind of weekend getaways for you as well. You can hop on your train in your hometown and we can send you just a few hours out just somewhere nearby with some great attractions, hotels, and sightseeing for you. Speaking of hotels, all of these packages, of course, that you've seen do include your hotel accommodations when you're staying in a city. And we have a lot of different options for you in those cities. So we have 3-star, 4-star, or 5-star options, whether you're looking for something clean and comfortable just to use as a base while you explore, or whether you want to spend some time in the hotel and relax, maybe somewhere with a beautiful spa, fantastic restaurant. We have those options for you and pretty much everything in between. The other fantastic thing about all of our hotel choices is that they are all conveniently located. Now, as I mentioned before, the trains do come right into the heart of the city, or in some cases, right into the heart of the national parks. So that's Glacier National Park Lodge there. This photo is taken from the train station, just to kind of illustrate to you how close the train station is. It's right there at the park. Um, it's about 206 steps from the Glacier train station to the Glacier Park Lodge. One of our colleagues visited and counted it out for us. And certainly that can be true wherever you travel on board Amtrak. So, for example, one of my favorite hotels in Washington, D.C. is actually located right across from the train station. It's a really great base for exploring because a lot of the tours from Washington do depart from the train station. So you can get off the train, walk right across the street to your hotel, settle in, relax for a bit, and then cross the road again and hop on a sightseeing tour and get out and see Washington. So certainly that can be true wherever you want to visit. We can set you up with a hotel very close either to the train station or to the sightseeing, or in some cases both, of course, depending on what city we're looking at. Now, one of the questions I always get a lot of when people are interested in train travel is how do I pack for the train? Um, and so the train is really very generous with your luggage allowance. It's not like an airline where you're going to get nickel and dimed for every ounce that you bring on board. You get 2 free carry-on bags with Amtrak. And for every station that does have checked baggage, which is pretty much all of the major stations in the US, you have 2 checked bags included as well. In addition, it doesn't mention it here, but you do get 1 personal item in addition to those 4 bags. So you can bring 4 bags potentially, as well as a personal item like a purse, a backpack, a laptop bag, something like that. So the 2 free carry-on bags you do keep with you throughout your journey. You can put them overhead or under your seat when you're in coach. You can bring them into your room if you have a roomette or bedroom. The checked baggage works just like an airline. So once you check your bag with Amtrak, you're not going to see it again until the end of your journey. So let's say you're on the Northern Rail Experience and you check your bag in Chicago, you're not going to see it again until you arrive in Seattle. So you do want to make sure when you are packing for the train to bring anything that you might need for that overnight journey, like pajamas, your toothbrush, of course, any medications, any snacks that you want to bring on board the train, any food or drink. You want to have that with you in your carry-on so that it's accessible. Um, Anything that you don't need until you get to your destination, pack that away in your checked bag, and you'll see it in a couple days when you get off the train in Seattle there, for example. Now, luggage with Amtrak can be checked up to 45 minutes prior to your departure. So, like I said before, you do not have to arrive at the station 3 hours early. If you are going to check a bag, I do recommend you get there about an hour early so that you have a little bit of time to get the lay of the land, find the baggage desk, and make sure you get everything checked in. You do will you will just want to mention if you do give us a call or call your local travel agent for information, just mention where your hometown station is, and we can look up the luggage situation and let you know if they do have checked baggage from that station. For example, in Boston, Boston South Station has checked baggage, but Boston's Back Bay Station, just a couple stops down the road, does not. So we can let you know what the right station for you would be if you did want to check your bags. Now, coach accommodations on board Amtrak, I actually don't really like the word coach because I think that it makes folks think of airplanes with cramped seating. But as you can see, that is not the case at all on Amtrak. For one thing, there is no middle seat. With Amtrak, it's 2 seats and then an aisle and then 2 more seats. And as you can see, the seats do recline back quite far. It's about a 45-degree angle, similar to a recliner chair that you might have in your house. You have a little footrest that comes up as well, so these are very comfortable to ride during the day. As you can see, there's a lot of space overhead for your luggage. You can also put any smaller bags under the seat in front of you. Or for any larger bags, there is a little luggage area at the front of each car. With the coach seats, you do get that nice big picture window. There's outlets at just about every seat. And you do have access to both the sightseer lounge car, which I typically call the observation car, as well as to the dining car. And you can also certainly bring on board your own snacks and food as well. But if you were going to be traveling overnight on board the train, if you were looking at that Northern Rail experience, America's National Parks, or any of the other overnight trips that we talked about today, I definitely recommend looking into one of the private sleeping accommodations on board the train there. There's 2 main sleeping accommodations on board Amtrak, the roomette and the bedroom. The roomette, as you can see here, is the slightly smaller room. During the day, it's 2 chairs which face each other with a big, huge picture window. At night, those chairs fold down into bunk beds. So it is bunk bed style sleeping, as you can kind of see in the little diagram there. With the roomettes, you do have outlets again, so you can charge your phone, your laptop, your tablet, any devices there. With the roomettes, it is your own private cabin, so you've got a lovely door that slides across, for your privacy. You also have the restrooms and showers just down the hall with the roomettes. So your facilities, as I said, are just down the hall, but they are only shared with the other folks who have the roomettes on board your particular train car. So you're not sharing with the entire train. It's just with the other folks that have a roomette in your train car. And the fantastic thing about any of the sleeper accommodations is that you do have assistance from the sleeper car attendant. So each car will have its own sleeper car attendant. And these folks are fantastic. They're some of my favorite people that work with Amtrak that I've met on all of my journeys. They're the folks who will turn your seats into beds at night. They'll turn your beds back into seats during the day. They'll help you with your meal times and your meal selections. They're a tremendous amount of knowledge. So wherever you might be traveling through, they can tell you where you are kind of at any given point on your journey and what you're seeing out the window. And as well, it's their responsibility to keep everything very nice and clean for you. So I can guarantee they're doing, a fantastic job right now, making sure that everything is very well sanitized and cleaned. So there's really nothing to worry about there with those facilities because the sleeper car attendant is taking care of them quite a few times throughout the day. If you did want a little bit more space, you could look into the bedroom accommodations on board the train. The bedrooms on board the train are a little bit larger, as you can see. You can sit next to each other on this little kind of love seat or across from each other. There's a chair in there as well. These do turn into bunk beds in the evening as well. A little bit larger than the roomette. The bottom bunk could sleep an adult and a child if you needed it to, and then just one person on that top bunk. One of the other great features with the bedroom is that it does have its own little private facility, so an enclosed toilet and shower right in your room that's private to your room, as well as a sink, of course, in there as well. Now, with either the roomette or the bedroom, all of your meals on board the train are included. So if you are on board the train during a meal time, that meal is included for you, which is another great feature of the sleeper cars. They're also private, as I mentioned. They do have a privacy door, which will close, as you can kind of see in the photo there. This is a roomette view, so the two folks are across from each other. They've got the big, beautiful picture window. You can kind of just see overhead where the bunk bed is. That'll fold down in the evening, to be their bunk. But of course, as you can see, they do have that nice privacy door. And just another view as well of the roomette. You can see she's got her coat hanging up there. The roomettes do have a little tiny closet as well. One of the other great features, if you did upgrade to the roomettes or bedrooms on board the train, is that sleeping accommodation passengers board the train separately. So they basically have priority boarding. You'll get walked down to the train and be among the first people on board the train. Another great feature is that when you are waiting in the station, a lot of the major stations like Chicago and Los Angeles have a special lounge where you can wait if you're a sleeper car passenger. So just a little bit more roomy lounge. They've got snacks available and they'll hold on to your luggage for you if you have a long layover, things like that. And if you didn't want to head down to the dining car, you could get the meals delivered to you right in your room, in your roomette or bedroom. So they'll take your order right there at your roomette or bedroom, and they'll deliver the meals to you in your room at the appointed time, which is a really nice feature, especially with everything going on. If you didn't want to go down to the dining car, you could have everything private in your room for you. As you can see, you can also enjoy a nice bottle of wine in your room as well. Folks do ask if you can bring your own food and drink on board the train, and you certainly can. The only caveat would be that if you did want to bring a bottle of wine or something like that, you do need to have a private cabin, roomette or bedroom, because they don't really want you to have the wine in the public areas of the train, basically. If you do have just coach seats, though, you can always go down to the cafe car and purchase a wine or cocktail there. Now, dining on board the train itself is fantastic. For all of the major long distance routes that we've looked at today, so the California Zephyr, the Empire Builder, the Coast Starlight, they typically do have meals made to order on board the train, which is a really nice feature there as well. So you can get your steak medium rare if that's the way you like it, and they'll cook it for you there on board the train, which is pretty fantastic. Amtrak Vacations does have some excellent discounts for you as well. So we've got some everyday discounts. So children ages 2 to 12 receive a 50% discount on the rail portion of your package. Seniors age 65 and over also get a 10% discount. And we've got some great discounts for active duty military as well as veterans. And as a great big thank you to everyone who joined me today, we do have a special savings offer just for you folks. So if you did want to upgrade to one of the sleeping accommodations on board Amtrak, you can save $100 off of your booking. So you just want to mention that promotional code if you give us a call or call your local travel agent. That promo code is upgrade100. So again, you want to mention the promo code, tell them that you were on the webinar today and that you saw, the discount to save $100 off your booking. And again, that promotional code is upgrade100. And just to remind you folks, we do offer with Amtrak Vacations maximum flexibility. So if anything were to happen and you did want to change your trip, we can certainly accommodate you right up until 5 days prior to your trip. No change fees, no cancellation fees if you did need to make any changes whatsoever. And I love this one. When you guys are ready, we are ready. A lot of my friends and colleagues here, everybody's working from home right now. It's definitely a little bit of an unusual time, but whenever you are ready, we're standing by and more than ready to help. Now, don't forget, please go ahead and download those free handouts, and please ask as many questions as you like. I can see I've got a ton of questions here, so I'm going to get to as many as I can in the next 10 minutes or so. And again, if I don't have a chance to get to your question, somebody from the team will reach out and make sure that you get that answer. So please, please, please type those questions away. And before I get started answering the questions, I do have one question for you folks, and that is, what rail vacations are you interested in, and when are you interested in going? If liked any of the trips you saw today, or if you have any other ideas about where you might like to go, just let us know. We're more than happy to get you over that information. I should mention, on a broadcast like this, I only have time to touch on so many packages, but we've got loads more on our website. If you visit amtrakvacations.com, you can see everywhere that we go throughout the USA and up into Canada. If you need any more information about any of those trips, or certainly feel free to give us a call or contact your local travel agent. I know all those guys are doing their best working from home as well. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to touch on the questions now. I've got a lot of good ones. And again, if I don't get to yours, we'll make sure somebody does reach out with that information for you. So I have a first question here from Christine, who'd like to know about luggage on the train. Do you take all your luggage with you, or does it get transferred by carriers on the train? So fantastic question, Christine. So for any carry-on bags that you bring with you on board the train, you are responsible for moving those, on and off the trains yourself. Let's say if you have a connection in Chicago, you're going to go Boston to Chicago and then Chicago out to the Grand Canyon. You would move those carry-on bags yourself, but if you checked a bag, it works just like with a flight. So your checked bag will be moved to the next train for you. So you don't have to pick it up and move it to the next train. You check it in Boston, you'll see it again when you get to Arizona. Pardon. So great question there. I have another question about the dining car. Are you required to sit at a mixed table, especially if you prefer to dine alone? So fantastic question. So in the dining car, traditionally, if you were traveling as a single or a double, one or two people, you may get seated with another person or another couple in the dining car. But certainly, especially with everything going on right now, you can sit alone if you like. Or if you'd rather, you can have those meals delivered right to your room. So that's another choice for you as well. I've got a great question from Jim here. He'd like to know about accessibility on board the train. So fantastic question, Jim. As I mentioned, the two main cabin types on board Amtrak are the roomette and the bedroom, but they certainly do have an accessible cabin as well. The accessible cabin is on the lower level of the train, so you don't have to worry about the stairs there. There is room in the accessible cabin for a wheelchair. So if you're wheelchair bound, that's no problem. You can stay in the chair, or you can transfer to the seating that's available in the cabin. And then at night, it does fold down into bunk beds in that cabin. So you do have the lower bunk, and then there's a top bunk as well. The accessible cabin does have access to its own restroom, toilet and toilet and sink as well. And then the showers are accessible, and they are just outside the cabin there. So we do have that. Again, certainly you could have your meal delivered to your room if you prefer not to walk through the train to get to the dining car as well. Linda would like to know what the best option would be if she's traveling with 2 adults and 2 children. So great question, Linda. It depends a little bit on which route you're looking at. If you are traveling on the East Coast, let's say from Washington down to Charleston and Savannah on that fantastic trip, the East Coast trains, you would want to get 2 rooms. You could get 2 bedrooms and then take the wall out in between them. Depending on how old the kids are, like if they're teenagers, you could get 2 roomettes and just have them right across the hall from each other. Or if you are traveling on one of the major cross-country routes on the western half of the US, so Empire Builder, Southwest Chief, California Zephyr, Coast Starlight, all those journeys out to the national parks, out to California, pretty much anything leaving Chicago westbound, those trains will all have what's called the family room. And the family room does sleep 2 adults and 2 children. So they've got 2 adult-sized bunks and 2 child-sized bunks in that family room. So that's certainly an option for you if you were looking at some of the national park trips or things like that. I've got another question here. Is it very loud traveling by train? Is it smooth traveling over the tracks? And how many stops does the train make along the way? So great question. No, I've never found it to be too loud. The train does move as you're on board the train. It does rock a little bit, but honestly, I find that really nice and helpful to get to bed. Kind of similar to being on a boat. And the train does make quite a few stops along the way, but typically all the stops are very short stops, just long enough to let folks get on and off the train. One of the great features of Amtrak is that when they are going to make a longer stop, if they need to refuel or take on more food, they'll make that announcement ahead of time. Let you know that they're going to stop, in XYZ location for 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Gives you a chance to actually get off the train, get a little bit of fresh air, and stretch your legs. Of course, they encourage you to stay right there on the platform, and they'll make the announcement when it's time to get back on board the train. But it's kind of neat to be able to get off the train in some of the different cities that you go through, take pictures of the signs, and get some fresh air, on your journey, especially if you are doing, multiple nights on board the train. I have a question here from Alex. Alex wants to know if you can book now for next summer. So great question. Yeah, a lot of our national parks and things like that, it's a fantastic time to visit them in the summer. And if you're not sure about going this year, we can certainly get you booked up for next year right now. We do book up to 24 months in advance. So you can go now, you can go next year, no problem. And actually, one of the benefits to booking early is that you do secure some of that space. Pardon. As I mentioned with Grand Canyon, we do have you folks a lot of the time stay right inside the national park. Inside those national park lodges, and the space can be hard to come by. One of our great advantages is that we do have guaranteed space inside the parks, but of course that will sell out. So one of the benefits of booking early is that you do secure that space ahead of time. Same thing is true with the bedrooms and roomettes on board the train. On those popular routes, especially in the summertime, those will sell out, so you do want to book early. So if you are considering a trip next summer, definitely let us know. Great question here from Holly. Can you book a trip in advance and make monthly payments? Excellent question. Absolutely, you can, Holly. So, with pretty much all of our trips here, you could put down just a small deposit, and then your final payment is not due until 60 days prior to your trip. So, you can make monthly installments along the way, or you can pay the bulk 60 days prior. So, if you're booking for next summer, you can put down a small deposit now, and your final payment won't be due until next spring. Alrighty, guys, it looks like I've just got time for about one more question here. And again, if I didn't have time to get to your questions, I do apologize, but don't worry, somebody will be reaching out to you. I do have a question here. Let's see, sorry, I've got so many, just trying to find one that'll help everybody out here. I do have a question here. This is a great one about dietary restrictions on the train. So if you guys do have dietary restrictions, your best bet is to speak to your server in the dining car or the person that takes your order if you're going to have the meal delivered to your room. They are very knowledgeable about what is included in the meals. Amtrak will always have a vegetarian option available. They'll also always have a kosher option available. And then if you have other dietary restrictions like low sodium or low carbs, just speak to the dining car attendant or whoever's taking your order for the meals, and they'll be able to help you choose a meal that'll best suit your dietary restrictions. Certainly for any of the trains where the meals are made fresh on board, there's always the potential that they could leave off the bread for the burger and things like that. So definitely just speak to the folks on board the train about it, and they'll be more than happy to help you select the right meal for your dietary restrictions. I want to thank everybody again so much for joining me. I know you have a lot of things you could be doing. I really appreciate you spending the hour with me talking about Amtrak Vacations, Roundtrip Rail Vacations. And again, if you have any questions whatsoever, please give us a call, visit our website, or contact your local travel advisor. They'd be more than happy to help you out making plans for your upcoming vacation. Thank you again, and you have a great rest of your day.